It's a strange question to ask. What if the human brain had stopped growing? It's like asking what if water wasn't wet? Our big brain is what makes us, well, us. Everything we are, everything we've done, comes from that 3 pound lump of fatty tissue between our ears. Art, science, love, war, the internet, your coffee cup, it all started there. But it wasn't a guarantee. Evolution doesn't have a goal. It's not trying to create poets and engineers. It just responds to pressure. For a very long time, having a slightly bigger brain wasn't a huge advantage. In fact, it was a massive liability. Brains are greedy, they demand a huge amount of calories. A modern human brain uses about 20% of our energy, even though it's only 2% of our body weight. That's a terrible deal if you're struggling to find enough food to survive. And a big brain means a big head. For a species that walks upright, that means a wider pelvis for females. It means childbirth is difficult and dangerous. It means our babies are born helpless and need years of care. For millions of years, evolution seemed to favor other strategies: stronger jaws, faster legs, better digestion. But the big brains were a risky bet. So let's imagine a world where evolution didn't take that bet. Let's go back in time. Not all the way to the apes, but to a critical point. Let's go back about 2.5 million years. We have a creature on the scene. Let's call it an early hominin, something like Homo habilis, the handyman. This creature is a breakthrough. It walks on 2 legs, its hands are free, and it's starting to do something remarkable. It's picking up one rock and using it to chip away at another, creating a sharp edge. These are the first tools, simple choppers and flakes. Not pretty, but they can cut through an animal hide or smash open a bone to get to the rich marrow inside. And this is where we'll stop the clock. The brain of Homo habilis was about 600 cubic centimeters. That's a big jump from its Australopithecine ancestors, but it's less than half the size of ours. In our world, this was just a starting point. The pressures of the environment, the feedback loop of tool use, social living, and diet would push brain size up and up. First with Homo erectus, and then with us, Homo sapiens, but in this other world, this alternate timeline, that's it. The growth stops. The brain size of hominins flatlines at 600 cc. Maybe a genetic change makes further growth impossible. Maybe the environmental pressures ease up just enough that there's no overwhelming advantage to getting smarter. They have their simple tools, they're surviving. Evolution says, good enough. What does that world look like? For these hominins, life is hard, and it stays hard. They exist in small, family-based groups. They wander the African savanna. They are not mighty hunters. They're expert scavengers. They watch the skies for vultures circling. They follow lions at a safe distance, waiting for them to finish a kill. Then they rush in, a frantic, noisy group. They use their stone choppers to quickly slice off some meat and smash some bones before the hyenas arrive. It's a life lived on the margins, in the shadow of bigger, stronger predators. Their social lives are basic. They have bonds. A mother cares for her young. They might groom each other. They communicate, but not with language. There are warning calls for predators. Grunts of satisfaction for food. Gestures to point things out. But there's no way to talk about yesterday. There's no way to plan for next week. There is no next week in their minds, not in any abstract sense. There is only now. The hunger now, the fear now, the sun now. Their tools never really improve. The simple old Darwin chopper is their masterpiece. It's their one and only trick. They never make the leap to the next level, the Acheulean hand axe. That might not sound like a big deal, but it is. A hand axe is different. It's symmetrical. It's shaped on both sides. It requires a mental template. You have to see the finished tool in the rock before you start. You have to plan your strikes. It takes foresight. A 600cc brain doesn't have that kind of foresight. So for hundreds of thousands of years, maybe a million, these hominins persist. They are a moderately successful animal. They spread a little, perhaps out of Africa into the Middle East. But they are tied to a certain climate, a certain way of life. They are specialized scavengers. And then the world changes. The ice ages begin. The planet's climate starts to swing wildly. When Africa gets drier, the forests shrink. The savannas expand and contract. The animals they depend on move or die out. In our timeline, this was the crucible that forged us. The constant change rewarded adaptability. It favored a brain that could solve new problems. How do you stay warm? You need to control fire. How do you hunt new, larger animals? You need better tools, better cooperation, better communication. You need to plan a hunt. You need to track animals over long distances. You need language to coordinate the group. You two go left around the rock. We'll wait here. This pressure drove our brains to grow bigger and more complex. But in the world where the brain stopped growing, these hominins have no answers. They can't invent better tools. They are stuck with their simple choppers. That's not enough to hunt a woolly rhino. It's not enough to consistently bring down large game. They can't adapt their strategies. They can't master fire. They might huddle around a natural fire started by lightning. They might enjoy its warmth and the way it keeps predators away. They can't make it themselves. The sequence of steps required, gathering the right tinder, creating a spark, nursing a flame, is too complex. It requires too much planning. So, when the fire dies, the warmth and safety die with it. They can't form large, cooperative societies. Their limited communication skills keep their groups small. You can't organize a large hunting party with just grunts and gestures. You can't establish rules for sharing food that work for 50 people. You can't build a culture. Without culture, knowledge can't be passed down effectively. Each generation learns the same simple skills from scratch by watching their parents. There is no accumulation of knowledge. There is no progress. So, as the climate gets tougher, they start to fail. They get outcompeted. Other animals are better adapted. The true predators, the lions and the saber-toothed cats, are far more efficient hunters. The true herbivores are far more efficient grazers. Our little hominin is stuck in the middle, a jack of all trades with too small a brain to become a master of any. They die out. It's not dramatic. There is no single event. It's a slow, quiet extinction. A group in one valley starves during a long drought. Another gets wiped out by a new predator they can't handle. Their numbers dwindle. They become rarer and rarer. Finally, the last group, huddled in a cave somewhere, simply fades away. And with them, the human story ends before it ever began. It's just another failed evolutionary experiment. A branch on the tree of life that withered. The planet doesn't notice, the Earth keeps spinning. What does that Earth look like 1,000,000 years later, in the time that would have been our present day? It's a world of giants. The Pleistocene megafauna, the massive beasts of the Ice Age, never went away. In our world, their extinction coincides suspiciously with the spread of modern humans. We were incredibly effective hunters. A band of Homo sapiens with spears, fire, and a plan could take down a mammoth. We were a new kind of super predator, but in this alternate world, that super predator never evolved. So, North America is still roamed by herds of woolly mammoths and mastodons. Giant sloths taller than giraffes browse on the treetops. Saber-toothed cats and dire wolves hunt giant bison. South America has its glyptodons, armored creatures the size of a small car. As Australia has its giant kangaroos and monitor lizards, the great grasslands of the world are maintained by these massive grazers. The forests are different, shaped by the feeding habits of enormous herbivores. The whole ecology of the planet is different. It's a world that is wilder, more primal. It's a world that has a biological richness that we have lost. And what about intelligence? Would another species have taken our place? Would dolphins have developed technology? Would crows have built cities? Probably not. Human-level intelligence is not an inevitable goal of evolution. It's a fluke. It was the result of a very specific set of circumstances, bipedalism freeing the hands. The right kind of social structure, a changing climate that demanded flexibility. A diet rich enough in protein and fat to fuel a growing brain. It was a perfect storm of conditions. Dolphins are smart, but without hands, how do you manipulate the world? How do you create fire underwater? Crows are clever problem solvers, but their small size limits their brain capacity. The path we took was weird. It's unlikely another animal would have followed it. So, the planet would continue, rich in life, but with no single species in charge. There would be no Anthropocene, no age of humans. The climate would continue its natural cycles of ice ages and warm periods. There would be no industrial revolution, no spike in carbon dioxide, no pollution. The planet, in many ways, would be healthier. But it would also be a world without witness. There would be no one to look up at the stars and wonder what they are. No one to figure out that the Earth is a planet orbiting a star. No one to discover the laws of physics or the code of life in DNA. The universe would be just as vast and complex, but it would be entirely unobserved. It would lack a mind to comprehend it. There would be no art. The caves at Lascaux in France would be just caves. The walls would be bare. No one would ever feel the need to grind up minerals and paint images of the animals they saw. The impulse to create, to represent the world, to make something beautiful for its own sake, would not exist. There would be no music. The air would be filled with the sounds of nature, birdsong, and wind, but no one would ever arrange those sounds into a melody. No one would ever build a drum or a flute. No one would ever sing a song to their child. There would be no love stories. Animals feel attachment, they form bonds, but the complex, narrative, self aware emotion that we call love, the kind that poets write about, requires a brain that can think about the past and the future. A brain that can tell itself a story about another person and its place in their life. There would be no morality, no arguments about what is right and what is wrong. Nature is amoral. A lion killing a gazelle is not evil, it is just hungry. Without a brain capable of abstract thought, concepts like justice, compassion, and sacrifice have no meaning. It's a sobering thought. We think of ourselves as the masters of the planet, and we are. We have bent it to our will. We have caused immense destruction. An Earth without us would, in some ways, be a paradise. The great animals would still roam free. The air would be clean. The rivers would run clear. But it would also be a world without meaning. Meaning is not something that exists out there in rocks and trees, it's something we create. Here we create it with our stories, our science, our art, our relationships. We are the universe's way of knowing itself. That small group of hominins, our ancestors, who started chipping away at rocks 2.5 million years ago, started something. They took a step onto a new and dangerous evolutionary path. The decision to invest in a bigger brain was a gamble. It was a gamble that meant more difficult childbirths, more helpless infants, and a constant, desperate need for more calories. It was a gamble that, in this alternate world, didn't pay off. They stayed with the good enough brain, and they vanished. In our world, the gamble paid off. Against all odds, it worked. The brain kept growing. With Homo erectus, it got bigger, and they controlled fire and created better tools. They spread across the globe. With us, Homo sapiens, it got even bigger, and that's when things really took off. As language became complex, we started to create symbolic art. We formed vast networks of culture. We built civilizations. We walked on the moon. All of that was built on the foundation of that initial risky growth. Every book ever written, every symphony ever composed, every act of kindness, every scientific discovery, it all hinges on the fact that our brain did not stop growing at 600 cubic centimeters. It's easy to be critical of humanity. We are flawed. We are destructive. We are often cruel to each other and to our planet. When you look at the damage we've done, it's tempting to wish that some simpler, less intelligent hominin had inherited the Earth. A creature that lived in harmony with nature because it wasn't smart enough to do otherwise. But that's a fantasy. That creature wouldn't have inherited the Earth. It would have become a fossil. The alternative to us was not a peaceful, simpler human. The alternative was no human at all. The world without our big brains is a world without us. It's a world without consciousness in the way we understand it. It's a world that is beautiful and complex, but has no one to appreciate it. No one to feel awe at a sunset. No one to feel grief at a loss. No one to ask the question, what if? So, the next time you feel overwhelmed by the complexity of the world, by the problems we've created, just remember the alternative. The quiet, unthinking world that could have been. Our big, hungry, complicated brain is a burden. It's the source of all our anxiety and all our problems, but it's also the source of all our joy and all our wonder. It was a gamble that evolution took a long time ago, and we are the strange, beautiful, and terrifying result of that bet paying off.